Your neighborhood just got cooler with Kroger Delivery's refrigerated trucks. Simply order groceries at the same great prices online as in-store, and we'll bring them to you fresh every time. And if that wasn't cool enough, you can now earn 4 times the fuel points after 4 with your digital coupon. Choose a next-day Kroger Delivery time slot for 4 p.m. or later on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Must deliver by February 4th. Restrictions apply. See Kroger.com for details.
This is a PSA, or public sock announcement. Experts have declared Bombas socks as the best way to warm up chilly feet. These pairs are super cushy, soft, and designed for maximum coziness. Plus, for every pair purchased, another pair will be donated, so someone in need of essential clothing can stay warm this winter. Go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
Funbelt Podcast.
Funbelt Podcast.
Funbelt Podcast.
Funbelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where I think clearly the best group of 5 conference in the country.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league is about.
This league is insane.
Yeah, it might be like one of those 8 wonders of the world.
And you can see just what a great group of 5 conference it really is.
It's a big deal.
Boy, life is looking pretty good in the Sun Belt these days.
It's time for another Funbelt podcast. That means it's Tuesday night. It's a 3-show week this week for Dusty and Jeremy. In my contract that I have negotiated, I only do 1 a week. But I'm, of course, one of your esteemed hosts, along with Dusty Thibodeau of Warhawk Report. Of course, Ben Moore with PantherTalk.com and 24/7. Week has come and gone. Another Funbelt weekend. Dusty, it was it's getting more fun, and I think the East race is certainly tightening a smidge, and it looks like stuff out west is continuing to clarify. But yeah, man, another weekend, and now we're in November, right? This is when the ring season begins for all the programs, and it's here we go, man. The weather is turning a little bit cooler, and starting to get the itching for bowl season, and bowl bids close to being grabbed.
Yeah, I mean it was a great weekend of football. We had Troy almost pull the upset of Coastal Carolina. Grayson McCall, my immediate thought, and I think he was okay. Definitely a concussion there when he kind of lost his dinner all over the field. All I could think of though was Any Given Sunday and Willie Beamer. I wish he would have stayed in the game just to have that great touchdown pass or whatever, just to kind of have that true comparison. But that's what ran through my mind. Lafayette with a shutout, just dominating performance over Texas State. ULM, I don't know. 5 turnovers, you're not going to win a game. It doesn't matter who you're playing with 5 turnovers. But if you look at it like this, 59-28, the 5 turnovers led to 24 points. You back that out, it's a 1-possession game. And what's even more frustrating, the opening drive ULM has, Chandler Rogers has a receiver wide open, nobody around him. and does he can't be that open and way overthrows him. Does that mean it's a tie game? Maybe, probably not. Who knows? But it's crazy when you start seeing the numbers and when you dig deep into it. Obviously, Georgia State went south, got a huge win, beat the Eagles so bad their mascot left the stadium, Ben.
That was a sign of things to come. Yeah, Freedom, the Eagle, very similar to what Auburn does, has the Eagle pregame fly around the stadium. Normally have the catcher there right about the 10 or 15 yard line, and quite literally the Eagle had left the building, and it was one of those scenarios too where both teams really, you could tell in a rivalry game, and we've said it for a while, weird stuff happens in rivalry games, and it was a very, very ugly first half. They certainly won't be teaching any offensive game plans coming off that game. But ultimately, the Georgia State rushing attack got going in the second half, and Georgia State was able to escape Statesboro with the victory. And I'm not sure if the folks down in the borough are still not calling it a rivalry, but this is now 3 wins and 4 attempts down in Statesboro, which the apostrophe there is being added by a lot of Georgia State folks. So a little bit of fun there, but no, they and it's also been a newsy day and a newsy couple days down there in Statesboro as they officially have a new head coach.
Yeah, moving from the West Coast. I'm curious to see how does that West Coast mesh with the old 3 yards in a cloud of dust that Georgia Southern really wants to have that kind of mentality and wants to have that type of football team. They don't have the personnel to do that right now. So we're looking at 2 to 3 years of them really rebuilding to get to be able to run that West Coast offense.
Yeah, it's really difficult. We were talking just briefly off air. It's a lot like Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech, trying to unwind the Paul Johnson triple option. You don't have a lot of the personnel there. Of course, Georgia Southern was not running a strict triple option, but you still have undersized offensive linemen. You're going to be, a ton of running backs in the program, not a whole lot of skill in terms of wide receivers, in terms of numbers. You have 0 pro style quarterbacks at all. So that's going to be heavy lifting there. And as we've talked about, and our guest from GATA Talk earlier in the season, you have an old guard that wants to really hold on to that triple option. Jeff Schultz of The Athletic reported that they did reach out to Paul Johnson, and he said, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good being retired and not coming back and trying to recreate the magic that he built there when the Eagles were FCS." But Helton's an interesting hire. Gainesville native, had been at Auburn briefly, Duke briefly, but that was literally decades ago. Hasn't recruited in the Southeast in quite a long time, and already put it out on Twitter, so it must be true. Brian Ellis, the Western Kentucky co-offensive coordinator, was a quarterbacks coach there at Southern Cal. Will be joining him on the offensive staff as well. So interesting to see how that offense continues to develop. Obviously, they're going to run a pro style set spread offense and don't have the personnel to do it. So look for the Eagles to get very, very active in the transfer portal and, trying to, rebuild once, what they had. We know what they did with Willie Fritz and kind of meshing that offense and having some very good athletes there. But this will be a very, very, heavy lifting, difficult task for that staff. And he's already there, which was a little bit interesting to me. I saw the report from Sports Illustrated saying that he was at practice today, observing, trying to figure things out. So tells me a lot about, him wanting to get his hand in there and figure out what he has and what he doesn't. As we know, the early signing period is going to be in December. So you have, a full 6 weeks to kind of evaluate the roster. And already some players have already jumped in the transfer portal as of this afternoon. So there is a lot of cleansing going on down in Statesboro. And as we know, I'm sure he'll take his ceremonial baptism in beautiful Eagle Creek soon enough.
The nightcap of the weekend there, Arkansas State, South Alabama, Jake Bentley, 3 games in a row of 250 yards or better. He had 251 with 4 touchdowns. South I still don't get them. There's weeks that they are probably one of the best teams in the league, and other weeks they're towards the bottom part of the middle. And don't really seem to know where they're supposed to be.
It's so wild, but hey, man, just throw it to Jalen Tolbert. Just keep doing that, and pretty much good things will happen. I think Jake Bentley continues to do that, and Tolbert just remains a matchup nightmare. We've talked about, sorry to Jeremy, he's tapped out of this one, but his Red Wolves are still allergic to defense. They don't like playing it. They like to give up yards on the ground. They like to give up yards through the air, and ultimately it was back to Lane Hatcher for the Red Wolves, and things did not go well for Lane. Had 3 picks and a QBR, if you're interested in it, of 15. That's not good. Just throwing it out there, guys. Not good to have a QBR of 15 when you have guys that routinely on a scale of 1 to 100. But no, I mean it's we knew obviously the Butch Jones rebuild was going to be pretty deep. As you mentioned, I mean, South has rode the roller coaster pretty much all season. They jumped out 3-0, lost a couple games. Now they're 1 win away from bowl eligibility. That's a huge opportunity for Kane Womack and that staff. And as they continue to try to build and get some momentum down there in Mobile.
You mentioned the standings earlier. The East is, you said it's kind of compacting down, but App State, Coastal, Georgia State, all 3-1. Now, App State has the head-to-head that they would be able to claim the East division, but it doesn't get any closer than that. And all it takes is one weekend. This weekend, App State goes to Arkansas State. We've said it before. Jonesboro is the place where dreams go to die. It wouldn't surprise me if it happened. Am I getting the hate mail from the Mountaineer fans over that? Probably. But if you look back, Arkansas State plays really, really well at home, and it would not surprise me to see the Red Wolves somehow claim that game.
Yeah, it's just, the toughest part about it ultimately, winning on the road is difficult, right? Ultimately teams feel better when they, are sleeping in their own bed. And at some point you have to think Arkansas State's going to put up another crooked number on somebody, right? You're going to get out into a shootout, into an opportunity there. And App has had their moments. We saw that earlier this season where they have, done things that make you kind of scratch your head, that been, a little bit undisciplined and un-App State like. I think the game could be closer. I see the line's already, 3 touchdowns, in favor of App State, which is pretty rich, honestly. And the other side too. I mean, where's Arkansas State's mentality right now? It is November. A lot of these guys that did come back and may or may not be Butch Jones guys. Are they going to stick around and push it a little bit, or are they kind of look to be checked out for the season and just saying, hey, going through the motions? So that's the toughest part about college coaching. Certainly is trying to motivate those 18 to 22-year-olds when there's really no more goals in front of them. Again, a big name to be in there. So interested in seeing how that game progresses. But you're right. I mean, there are 3 teams that are still in the mix. They're in the East, and it looks like Louisiana's just kind of gliding along as they play an early game here. They're the kickoff this week.
The interdivisional rivalry game, South Alabama goes to Troy. I love that game. I love that it's the Sun Belt and they play for the belt. It's fantastic. Next year, it might lose a little bit of meaning, or in the future, I should say, whenever they are in the same division. But, we've said it all along also about Troy, as much as we talked about South Alabama. Troy just doesn't know if they're supposed to be good or bad. And I like Troy. I think that they have all the right pieces. They just need the right conductor to get the orchestra playing in the right tune.
Yeah, we talked about, honestly, their offenses still continue to be the issue. When things, their defense has been really good at times, and it kept them in ball games, but you still have to score in this league. You still have to, put up points and even coming close and kind of taking advantage of Coastal Carolina, coming off their first loss the previous week. I mean, that game was winnable, for sure, on the road and just couldn't generate enough points. I'm very interested to see too, as we talked about Kane Womack in that, South Alabama. This is a big game, big rivalry game between those 2 schools. It does matter in that state in a major way. Very interested to see what happens there at Troy. I'm sure there'll be a pretty good crowd there, and it's really going to be strength on strength. You have a very good defense versus, a running game that can, get going a little bit in Kamani Vidal and then Jake Bentley against that Troy defense and secondary and linebackers. It's going to be a lot of fun to see who lands that first punch in the state. And again, does the South have an opportunity to go ahead and clinch that bowl against a rival, or does Troy try to fight back and say not so fast, my friend?
Thursday night, Georgia State travels down to the bayou of Louisiana, Lafayette. Lafayette leading the West right now, perfect 5-0. But hold on to this. Warhawks in second place with a 2-3 record, holding the tiebreaker head-to-head matchup against South Alabama. Who would have known that coming into this season? But I digress. Georgia State, Lafayette's going to roll. I hate to say it, Ben, but there's just nobody that's going to stop Billy Napier right now.
Yeah, this is, I think, a convergence of a lot of bad things for the Panthers. Coming off a humongous road win, the rivalry win, short week. Head coach Sean Elliott was at the World Series game on Sunday night, as were some of the players. They were in the area around Truist Park watching the Braves game. Very, very short, compressed time frame to prepare for this game. Went back and looked at Louisiana blowing out Texas State. They got into their bench very early in the third quarter. They're not going to be as beat up. They're going to have an opportunity to go. Very, very interested to see what the Panthers and what kind of resistance they can pull off, because we have talked about it for several weeks. I mean, Louisiana had kind of been skipping a little bit and just kind of going through the motions. Really, really kind of got going against Texas State, and that running game is one of the best in the country. I will say this: if I do have a prediction, predicted that the game will probably only last about 2.5 hours, because you have two teams that just want to run the football. So that it may be one of those scenarios where you look up and you're like, is it really the third quarter? And there's only 2 hours have gone by, but no, I think it's a big opportunity, obviously, for Georgia State there, but they, for whatever reason, they just have not had the luck against the Cajuns, and certainly going to Cajun Field on Thursday night is going to be difficult. And another thing as well, Georgia State does not play well on national TV, and even worse than that, have traditionally been blown out. Going back to Memphis a few years ago on a Friday night, where I got the doors blown off of them. They've had an opportunity against App State and lost big. I think the biggest thing now is just taking that step forward now and seeing what if the Panthers can just try to strike a blow back. But Louisiana has a tremendous pass defense as well, and that's something that the Panthers want to do better. Coach Elliott's talked about it for several weeks, is trying to pass the ball downfield. Well, the Cajuns are not the team to really do that. They defend the pass very, very well. So it's it may be a very rough evening and a rough trip to Lafayette. The second of 3 straight road games. Thanks, Sun Belt, to the Panthers, 3 in a row. So, but they'll have to grin and bear it and try to keep on fighting.
Why did we never ask Keith Gill, why does he hate my team? And by that, I mean, you insert your team. He hates all of them, apparently. My favorite game, of course, and I'm headed there to San Marcos to go see the Warhawks and the Boobcats. Warhawks have not won on the road since 2019 when they went to San Marcos, baby. I'm looking forward to this being a great game. I know Chandler Rogers left the game early against App State with a bruised arm, allegedly. But I still like the Warhawks going to win. It's homecoming for Texas State. I love ruining people's homecomings as much as I had mine ruined several times. And the Warhawks will keep second place in the West. What more do you want?
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part to me. And I think this is one of those too, where we talked about how teams, come off a big win, also a big loss. How does Texas State respond? The Texas State AD came out yesterday and said, hey, we're behind Coach Spavital. We're going to try to give him more resources, and kind of gave him that vote of confidence there. So, the Texas State Bobcat Nation has to feel at least okay about their head coach. But again, as you mentioned as well, I mean, Terry Bowden, getting his opportunity there to make another statement, get another road win, check another box as the Warhawks would try to take another step toward bowl eligibility. And I agree with you. I like the Warhawks in this one. I think it's one of those scenarios where they've got the players. They just got to put it together and just miss that turnover bug, man. That's the biggest thing. Don't turn the ball over and you got a shot.
5 turnovers, you'll never win a game. Ben, our favorite time of the year, basketball season's here. There's a lot of non-D1s to open the season, but starting on the 9th, we actually have some D1 head-to-heads. Texas State gets a chance to get redemption when they go to Incarnate Word. To me, I like Texas State. Sunbelt champions last year. A lot of good returners coming back. I like Texas State there. ULM going on the road for the money game against LSU, Ball State, Georgia Southern, UTA, and Oklahoma State to kick it off. As well as on the women's side, ULM travels just down the road to Grambling. Texas State goes to Baylor. I like a lot of these early games. I know when we talked to Jay Walker, he was like, the home schedule sucks. Yeah, it kind of does, because out of all those games that we just said, only one of them is actually at home. But I like the matchups. And even a little bit later next week, you have App State going to Mercer. People are going to scratch their head. Mercer, that's a good mid-major matchup right there.
Yeah, no question. And I think this is, November, especially early. These are the games that the league wants to win, right? If you want a better basketball product, you want to challenge yourself with peer mid-major conferences. You're looking around, as you mentioned, the SoCon there. I mean, Mercer, not too long ago beat Duke in the NCAA tournament. They've been a very solid program, basically kind of getting footing back in the state of Georgia, playing in a loaded SoCon. The SoCon puts really, really good programs out there too. And we see a lot of kind of, I wouldn't say low major, but you're going to see mid-major and maybe a little bit lower mid-major schools kind of rolled into some of the Sun Belt scheduling, and huge opportunities. And as you mentioned, some of the money games as well. I mean, there's some programs that are loading up and playing 3 or 4 of those in November and December, and you have an opportunity. And that's the biggest thing that we continue to see every single year is teams can get hot, come out there, and guys may not pay attention as much. Scouting. You see some of these low majors, they just kind of walk through and go through the motions. We've seen some preseason injuries as well, take place around the country. Guys may not be, 100% healed up. So they may be a little bit slowed down. So very interested to see what the league does. And I can't believe it's here already. That's kind of the convergence, right? You have football, you have basketball, championships going on as well with some of the fall sports. It's a blast. You just kind of, glide all the way through and follow it all. So this is certainly the busy time.
You mentioned championship weekend. There's one going on right now. Good old women's soccer. We actually had a great upset there. App State 2-1 over the 6th seed of Texas State, sets up all the quarterfinals kicking off on Wednesday. Your Panthers playing that upstart App State team, South Alabama and Little Rock. Little Rock beat Louisiana Lafayette in a shootout 3-0 after tying 1-1 in regulation. Arkansas State will play ULM, the 8th seed, after they fell from the 3rd seed for who knows what happened off the field. And then Georgia Southern and Coastal Carolina kind of close out that quarterfinals. I'm always excited when it's championship season time.
Yeah, it's this is what you play for, right? And that's the best part about it. And as you mentioned, you already see upsets going on. You have everyone's trying to grab that that elusive bid, the NCAA tournament bid, and I think this is kind of when people pay attention overall, I believe, to the non-revenue sports, right? You look at them and you go, all right, wow, this is going on. All right, there's a championship going on. There's something at stake. I think that's the really fun part about it. You may not pay attention to, a soccer or a volleyball during the regular season because you got other stuff going on. But this is championship time, and this is when they award the trophies and the banners, and folks get to play in the postseason and against much bigger programs and have opportunity to make huge statements. So it's a lot of fun. I know I'll be jumping on ESPN Plus tomorrow and checking out a couple matches and see what's going on within the Fun Belt on the women's side.
So with it being championship season right now, I want to circle back to something that Commissioner Benson had talked about last week when he talked about bringing in Old Dominion, presumably James Madison, Marshall, Southern Miss. And his comment was that you don't have to hit on every single school, but you got to be pretty close, that everybody needs to be at that 500 or better. So my question to you, Ben, is what is the expectation for not only the members now, but those coming in, what is that trade-off? If you do have, an 0-10 football season, an 0-12 football season, if your women's basketball team goes to the dance, does that make up for it? Or if softball somehow makes it to a regional, what is kind of that trade-off?
I think that's the biggest thing and the biggest sentiment. And I agree. I mean, you have to ultimately talk to these athletic directors and presidents and find out if they're making a financial commitment to certain athletic departments and certainly certain sports. There's, as we've seen, Marshall has a national championship level soccer program. That's a huge ad. Keith Gill talked about that the other day, saying that Sunbelt soccer will be coming back. Men's soccer will be coming back. That's a huge news, potentially to build a tremendous multi-bid league there for the Sun Belt. You have an opportunity, again, as we've talked about, having multiple ranked teams in football. You want men's basketball to continue to progress and get stronger. And I think that does with the 4 additions that will be coming into the Sun Belt. I think women's basketball will continue to get stronger. You look at Old Dominion historically from the basketball side, both men's and women's has been great. And that's certainly a big add. James Madison has been in the NCAA tournament several times. And I think that's kind of what you want to see. You want to see baseball improve, right? You want to see softball improve. And overall, you want to stress to these teams, listen, to compete in this league, there's kind of an expectation. And I think ADs have that list of, hey, this is what we want to compete in. We want to win this many championships or compete for this many championships annually. Just comes down to resources. It comes down to resource allocation and focus, really. And I think overall, the league got a lot better and a lot more balanced across the league with the variety of different sports. I know so many people focus on, football and men's basketball, but there's a lot of really good programs that are entering the league very quickly. So schools are going to have to react. They're going to have to recruit better, build better facilities and recruit better athletes there as again, the talent level just continues to rise.
Yeah. I mean, we already knew that the Sun Belt has pretty good football. They have pretty good men's basketball. They have okay women's basketball. They have pretty good softball. I think that they have pretty good track as far as the non-revenue. But beyond that, it's kind of the Sun Belt is very much an afterthought. So I think that it's kind of a trade-off of you got to really win at those core sports, the big 4, men's, women's basketball, football, baseball, and I'll even say a core 5 of softball as well, because we have so much talent in the conference. But it's not going to move the needle if the golf team is way below par, no pun intended, or anything like that. So I think that while there's a trade-off, I think as long as your core 5, so to say, are strong, I think that is what we have to strive for as a conference, to be strong from there. And then we'll have the occasional bonus of, a great golfer that comes through, a great women's soccer team that runs through and somehow, gets the upset in the NCAA tournament. But for the most part, core 5 all the way.
Yeah. And I think that's, certainly baseball has continued to take a step forward. I think even some of the teams that have come in, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, App State, they've been surprised at how strong Sun Belt baseball has been. Of course, adding Coastal Carolina, national champion. You've had Louisiana Lafayette host a regional in recent memory as well. I think that's kind of the next progression is seeing these teams that may have not focused on, again, like you said, those core sports as much and just dedicate all the resources to football and some to basketball, having to balance that out a little bit more. Otherwise, you just are going to continue to get hammered. And, there is monies out there for these teams. And someone asked me about the new Sun Belt basketball. I think there is an opportunity for a multi-bid league now, which just didn't exist, really in the last 10, 15, almost 20 years. It's just about overall, keeping those head coaches in the league. Once making sure that, hey, a Little Rock doesn't have success, lose their coach, and then completely plummet, completely go to the bottom of the league. That can't happen. But that, again, has to be a focus from that specific athletic department. Carl Benson was interviewed a few years ago about it when talking about how does men's basketball get better. It was pretty simple, right? You got to spend money on it. You got to go and improve your recruiting. You have to recruit better players, development, put an emphasis on facilities, because ultimately you're competing with high majors in all these sports. And then when you even go down the equivalency sports, kids want to win. They want to win at a high level. They want to know who you're playing to, having an attractive schedule. not just scheduling wins. That has happened. We've seen that at our level here, certainly, where you may have a softball or baseball program just schedule a bunch of wins and then just completely fall apart in conference play. You're looking at, all right, well, that doesn't really help you. So you go the other way, like Georgia State did last year, and play 20 ranked teams in your non-conference, and get your head beat in a lot, but you'll certainly collect a lot of paychecks there. Don't recommend that as a general strategy. But no, I agree with you, Dusty. It comes down ultimately, if you want the league as a whole to continue to rise. And we also know too, it's multiple seasons, right? It's multiple years where it's got to grow and continue to grow, where perception becomes reality, where it's not just, hey, an upset here, an upset there. It's multiple teams landing punches and seeing that and getting those opportunities to go and make hay in the NCAA tournament, because that's ultimately where everyone's going to be judged.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the NCAA tournament, especially for men's, women's basketball is kind of the pristine thing that you want to be in. Probably the closest that a Sun Belt team will be to actually competing on the stage for a national title. But to me, I like the formats of the C-level tournament and the NIT, where it's back on your campus. It's more collegiate and less commercial, not as much money into it, but that's just kind of my preference. So when you talk about multi-bid leagues, I like that, we have the automatic bid into the NIT for men's and women's for regular season champ. I wish baseball would kind of step it up and that we would get multiple teams in that way. It's always exciting to watch NCAA regionals. Football, if an undefeated Cincinnati that has several top 10 wins is still on the outside looking in on the college football playoff, there's not going to be a G5 that ever makes it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's tough. I mean, look, you have a scenario too where neither Louisiana or Coastal Carolina are ranked in the top 25 in the CFP. And they're ranked obviously in the coaches poll and the AP poll. It's just the reality of it. And ultimately being a group of five, alum like we are, we just know that's the reality of the scenario where you're going to have people. And again, the Georgia State Athletic Director is on the CFP committee, holding that down for the Sun Belt spot. I'm sure he's, outvoted by the vast majority of folks there in the room. But I think that's the trouble, is when you ultimately hold up resumes next to each other, there's going to be a natural Power 5 bias. And even if they expand it to 8 or to 12 or whatever the number may be, as soon as the new TV deal happens, I just see in no way the group of five gets included, and they will be thrown to the kiddie table there around Thanksgiving.
I like to think that guy from Georgia State, there's always that one kind of oddball Heisman vote for the center that's a feel good story or whatever, that he just stands up in the middle of it and it's like Arkansas State.
That'd be amazing. I can see that happen. It's funny, Charlie Cobb's a former offensive lineman, so he'd be the guy that would say, "Hey, we're gonna have the best interior lineman." Yeah, he's gonna be getting my Heisman vote this season.
Love it. Short show, I know. Ben's chomping at the bit because he thinks his Barbs are going to win a World Series. Parting shot. What do you got there for us, Ben?
Yeah, man. I had a chance to catch up with the new President Brian Blake of Georgia State University. We'll be kind of having a recap of our conversation tomorrow on PantherTalk.com. Looking forward to kind of getting some reaction there. We do talk about athletics. Did talk about the university as well. He's an Atlanta guy. Went to Georgia Tech and talked about that experience. And I was very fortunate to speak with him. So kind of had a little bit of an exclusive with him and talking about growing things and kind of his vision, which is always fun because, as we know in all this, the presidents set the vision and set the tone in athletics. And then certainly the athletic directors and the coaches have to follow that. So that will be breaking. I'll be posting that tomorrow morning. And then, of course, as you mentioned, it's earlier Thursday night game, which I'm hoping that my Braves can go ahead and take care of this tonight so I can actually sleep tomorrow night. If not, then it'll be Game 7, and we will have the Atlanta PTSD that I know very well. But yeah, to clinch that in Houston would somewhat cleanse some of the palates of Atlanta sports fans as well, as that's where the Falcons died. So, yeah.
That was good. That was a good Super Bowl. That was actually at Minute Maid Park that I was working at the time to host the Super Bowl opening night. And that was fantastic. Good times.
I had an opportunity to go. I had buddies, my partner on the site called me on Tuesday, said, "Do you want to go?" And I was thinking about moving heaven and earth. Thank God my wife basically said, "You could do it, but what if they lose?" And I was like, yeah, that's the pain, man. That's the pain. And I knew many people that paid a whole lot of money Sunday to get in that building only to see the Braves lose 9-5. So hopefully they take care of business tonight. So the city of Atlanta will have something to celebrate for the first time since 1995.
My parting shot, my bad confession. I didn't get to vote today on the elections. We didn't have anything meaningful in Texas, but, I always tell people it doesn't matter who you vote for, why you vote, just get out and vote. So I apologize to everyone that I did not go vote on my Texas state constitutional amendments. Slap on the hand. I'll try to do better next time. Other than that, next episode will be Jeremy and myself talking with Coastal Carolina head coach Cliff Ellis as we get ready to talk Chants basketball ahead of the season starting. I can't believe football season's just about done and basketball season's kicking off, or tipping off, I guess you should say.
Yeah, and Cliff has seen some things, man. He's coached in the SEC. He's been bounced around. Will be a great interview there, and his experiences with Georgia State when he was the Auburn coach. I was actually in attendance for both of those games. I believe it was his 400th career win. They presented him with a ball when they blasted Georgia State, and then the following season they got in super late, had a road trip and played in a tournament in Las Vegas, and their flight got delayed, didn't get back to Auburn until about 4 a.m. Georgia State came in the following night and landed a 10-point victory over his Tigers, and they promptly fired him at the end of that season, citing the many losses to the mid-majors. So, but no, Cliff's a great guy. Looking forward to hearing you and Jeremy's interview on that. And he's seen some stuff, and his Chants are always pesky team in the Sun Belt as well.
Sounds great. Well, for Dusty Thibodeau, Warhawk Report, Ben Moore, Panther Talk, this is another Fun Belt podcast, and we'll do it again tomorrow. And hopefully Ben will actually be able to join us next week for more shows, and we'll have the gang back together.
That's the plan.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and T-shirts that give back. 1 purchased equals 1 donated. Now go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.